You have been losing money every single day of your adult life. Not because of a bad investment, not because of a market crash, not because of anything you did wrong, because of a force that has been operating on every dollar you own since the day you earned your first paycheck. And almost nobody has ever shown you the math of what it has actually cost you. Here is the number that starts this video. If you have $50,000 sitting in a standard savings account at the national average interest rate, that balance is losing roughly $1,200 in purchasing power every single year. Not from fees, not from taxes, from inflation. The balance on your statement stays the same or grows slightly. The amount of real life that balance can buy shrinks every month. In 20 years, that $50,000, if left in a typical savings account, will buy what $27,000 buys today. You will have watched the number on your screen stay roughly flat. You will have lost nearly half of what it was worth. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what inflation is doing to every account you own, how to calculate your real return on any savings or investment in under 2 minutes, and what the retirement number you are targeting actually needs to be once inflation is factored in. I know how that sounds. Let me earn it. Inflation has a textbook definition: a general increase in prices and a fall in the purchasing value of money. You have heard it, you have seen it on the news. You have nodded and moved on. That definition describes the symptom. It does not describe the machine. Here is the mechanical reality. Every dollar you own is a claim on a quantity of real goods and services: a gallon of milk, a month of rent, an hour of a plumber's time. Inflation does not change the number printed on your dollar. It changes how much of the real world that dollar can claim. When inflation runs at 3% a year, every dollar you own loses 3% of its claim on the real world every single year. Not visibly, not in a way that shows up on any statement. The number stays the same. The purchasing power behind it shrinks. This is why inflation is the most dangerous financial force. Most people never actually calculate. A market crash is visible. It shows up on your statement in red. You feel it. You respond to it. Inflation never appears on your statement at all. It works entirely in the background, eroding the real value of every dollar you own, every single day, whether the market is up or down, whether the economy is growing or contracting, whether you are paying attention or not. The machine runs on everything: your checking account, your savings account, your emergency fund, your cash under the mattress. Every dollar that is not growing faster than inflation is shrinking in real terms, silently, every day. Let me introduce the two people this video runs on. Meet Sarah. Sarah is 35 years old. She earns a solid income as a marketing director and has been financially careful for years. She has $60,000 in savings, a fully funded emergency fund, and has been contributing to her retirement account consistently. Sarah knows inflation exists. She also knows her real return on every account she owns, what her retirement balance will actually buy in today's dollars, and exactly which of her dollars are beating inflation and which ones are quietly losing ground. Now meet Mark. Mark is also 35, same city, same approximate income. Mark has $60,000 in a savings account at his neighborhood bank, earning the national average rate of 0.45%. Mark checks his balance regularly. It goes up slightly every month. He feels good about it. The number is bigger than it was last year. What Mark has never calculated is what that number will actually buy at retirement. He has been watching a nominal balance grow while a real balance quietly shrinks. Mark is not careless. He is not uninformed about money in general. He has just never been shown the one calculation that would change every savings decision he makes. Let me show him now. Mark's savings account earns 0.45% per year. Inflation over the past 30 years has averaged approximately 3% annually. That figure comes from the Federal Reserve's own long-run target and the historical CPI data behind it. Mark's nominal return, 0.45%. Inflation rate, 3%. Mark's real return, 0.45% minus 3% equals negative 2.55%. Mark's savings account has a positive interest rate. His balance grows every month, and he is losing 2.55% of his purchasing power every single year. That is not a rounding error. That is not a technicality. That is the actual return on the largest savings balance most Americans own. Now run it in dollars. Mark has $60,000 today at negative 2.55% real return. Here is what that balance actually buys over time. In 10 years, Mark's $60,000 will have a nominal balance of roughly $62,750. It grew slightly from the 0.45% interest. But in today's purchasing power, that $62,750 buys what $46,600 buys right now. The statement says he gained money. The real world says he lost $13,400 in purchasing power. In 20 years, Mark's nominal balance will be approximately $65,600. In today's purchasing power, that $65,600 buys what $34,600 buys right now. He has watched his balance grow for 2 decades. He has lost $25,400 in real purchasing power. In 30 years, Mark's nominal balance will be approximately $68,500. In today's purchasing power, that balance buys what $25,700 buys right now. 30 years of saving, a positive balance throughout. And his $60,000 now buys less than half of what it bought on the day he deposited it. He never missed a payment. He never made a bad investment. He simply left his money in the account his bank opened for him and never ran the real number. Now run the same $60,000 through a different machine. Sarah understands that keeping long-term savings in a low-yield account is a guaranteed loss in real terms. She keeps her emergency fund 3 to 6 months of expenses in a high-yield savings account currently paying 4.5%. Everything beyond that emergency cushion goes into her investment account allocated to a low-cost index fund, returning an average of 10% nominally over the long run. Sarah's high-yield savings account real return, 4.5% minus 3% inflation equals positive 1.5%. Her emergency fund is actually growing in real terms, not by much, but it is moving in the right direction. Sarah's investment account real return, 10% minus 3%, inflation equals positive 7%. Her long-term money is compounding at a real rate that actually builds purchasing power year after year. Run Sarah's $60,000 in the investment account over 30 years at a 10% nominal return. Nominal balance at 30 years, approximately $1,047,000. In today's purchasing power, adjusted for 3% inflation, approximately $432,000. Same starting balance, same 30 years. Mark ends with $25,700 in real purchasing power. Sarah ends with $432,000 in real purchasing power. The gap in real terms, $406,000. Not from different incomes, not from different levels of discipline. From understanding one number, the real return, and moving money accordingly. This is the part worth sitting with. Mark's savings account statement never once showed him a loss. Every month, the balance grew slightly. Every year, he felt the quiet satisfaction of watching the number increase. The nominal balance told him he was saving successfully. The real balance told a completely different story that never appeared on any statement he ever received. This is what makes inflation the most underestimated force in personal finance. A market crash announces itself loudly. Inflation whispers. It never shows up in red on your statement. It never triggers an alert from your bank. It never makes the news in a way that connects the macro headline to the specific dollar amount it is quietly removing from your purchasing power every single month. By the time most people realize what inflation has done to their savings, decades have passed and the loss is permanent. You cannot recover purchasing power you spent 30 years not building. But the problem goes further than savings accounts, because inflation does not just affect the money you have today. It affects the retirement number you are targeting for the future. Here is the question most retirement calculators never ask. When you say you want to retire with $1 million, what year's dollars are you thinking in? If you are 35 today and you plan to retire at 65, you have 30 years until retirement. $1 million in 30 years at 3% annual inflation has the purchasing power of roughly $412,000 in today's dollars. You are not targeting $1 million. You are targeting the equivalent of $412,000 in today's money. If your current lifestyle costs $60,000 a year, $412,000 supports roughly 7 years of retirement spending. Not the 25 to 30-year retirement most people are planning for. To actually retire with $1 million of today's purchasing power in 30 years, your target balance needs to be approximately $2,427,000 in nominal terms. That is the number most retirement calculators never show you. Not because the math is hidden, because nobody asked the question in today's dollars. Mark is targeting $1 million. He has never adjusted that target for inflation. He is building toward a number that sounds large and will feel adequate right up until the moment he retires and discovers what it actually buys. Sarah targets her retirement number in today's dollars first, then converts it to the nominal figure she actually needs to accumulate. She is not guessing. She is building toward a real purchasing power goal rather than a nominal balance that inflation will quietly erode before she ever spends it. There is one calculation that makes all of this tangible in under 2 minutes. It is called the real rate of return, and it is the single number every saver and investor should know about every account they own. The formula is simple. Real rate of return equals nominal return minus inflation rate. Your savings account pays 0.45%. Inflation runs at 3%. Real return, negative 2.55%. You are losing purchasing power. A high-yield savings account pays 4.5%. Inflation runs at 3%. Real return, positive 1.5%. You are treading water in real terms with a slight gain. A broad market index fund returns 10% nominally over the long run. Inflation runs at 3%. Real return, positive 7%. Your money is genuinely compounding in real terms. A money market account at 2%. Inflation at 3%. Real return, negative 1%. Still losing, just more slowly. Run this calculation on every account you own right now. Write down the nominal rate. Subtract 3%. That is your real return. If the number is negative, that account is charging you an invisible fee equal to your real loss rate every single year. One detail makes this calculation more honest than it first appears. Inflation does not run at exactly 3% every year. It runs higher in some years. It hit 9.1% in June 2022, the highest reading in 40 years. It runs lower in others. The 3% figure is the long-run average and the Federal Reserve's explicit target. For planning purposes, it is the right number to use. But the real rate of return calculation should be revisited whenever inflation moves significantly, because the gap between your nominal rate and the real inflation rate is what actually determines whether your money is growing or shrinking. Here is the ranked action list, not ordered by what feels responsible, ordered by what the real return math says matters most. First, move your emergency fund out of a standard savings account and into a high-yield savings account, or short-term treasury bills, immediately. This is the single highest impact, lowest effort move available to most people. The same money, the same insurance, a real return that goes from negative 2.55% to positive 1.5% or better. There is no argument for leaving cash in a standard savings account when high-yield alternatives exist at identical safety levels. Nidinonal. Second, calculate your real return on every account you own right now. Nominal rate minus 3%. Write it down next to each account. Any account with a negative real return is an account that is costing you purchasing power every year it holds your money. Knowing the number is not optional if you own the account. Nilinon. Third, adjust your retirement target for inflation before you do anything else with your retirement plan. Take the annual income you want in retirement in today's dollars. Multiply by 25 to get the real purchasing power target. Then convert that figure to nominal future dollars using FOIN, an inflation calculator. That is the number you are actually building toward. Everything else in your retirement plan is noise until you know this number. Fourth, keep long-term money in assets that historically outpace inflation. A low-cost index fund returning 10% nominally against 3% inflation delivers a real return of 7%. Bonds, cash, and low-yield savings accounts have historically struggled to beat inflation over long periods. The assets that beat inflation are the assets that own productive businesses, real estate, and commodities, not the ones that promise safety through a fixed nominal rate. Fifth, revisit your real return calculation whenever inflation moves significantly. The difference between a 3% inflation environment and a 7% inflation environment is the difference between a savings account with a small, negative real return and a savings account losing nearly half its purchasing power per decade. The calculation is the same. The number you subtract changes. Stay current with it. Minda dollars mindi turbing siskan dollars up with it morshois. Minth moti horban with isha for an. While inflation quietly moved the goalposts on everything that number was supposed to buy, with the alhutin chained, no etymology, woke. This Koran done these. Through 30 years of small silent done adjustments to what every dollar can claim, compounding feel when florb. In the background, while the nominal statement number drifts upward and nobody raises an alarm, dimmed. Here is the one thing worth carrying out of this video. Your bank statement shows you a nominal balance. It shows you a nominal interest rate. It does not show you your real return. It does not show you what your balance will actually buy at retirement. It does not adjust for the 3% annual drain that has been operating on every dollar you have ever saved. Demmed. Debt adjustment is a single subtraction. Nominal return minus inflation rate, two numbers, one calculation. The result tells you whether your money is growing in real terms or quietly shrinking, while the statement tells you everything is fine. Sarah ran that calculation. Mark never did. 30 years from now, the gap between their real purchasing power will be $406,000, not from different incomes, not from different levels of effort, from one number that Sarah knew and Mark never checked. Now you know the number. Run it on everything you own. If you want to calculate your exact real return on every account you own, see what your current savings balance will actually buy at retirement in today's dollars, and find your inflation-adjusted retirement target. I built a tool that does all of it. You enter your balance, your nominal rate, your retirement timeline, and your target income, and it shows you the real picture your bank statement never will. It is part of the Wealth Logician's Calculator Vault, alongside every other tool we have built for this channel. Becoming a member gets you the full vault and a community of people who are actually running their own numbers instead of guessing. If that sounds useful, the link is in the description. Hit like if this changed what you see when you look at your bank balance. Subscribe if you want to do the math on the next one.